This is very serious stuff. As we go to air, Youcef Nadarkhani is awaiting execution in Iran. Now, his crime? To change his religion. He was a Muslim, he became a Christian, is now an ordained minister. As the months have gone by, the Iranian government has claimed further charges, such as rape, but this is mere propaganda. They are liars. Now, they kill people in much of the Muslim world for leaving Islam. They do. Joe Boot is a Christian apologist, an author, and you've spent time in Pakistan, I believe, and elsewhere. Whenever this subject comes up, we always hear that nonsense about, well, all religions can be extreme. Yeah, next time you're mugged by a Mennonite or you're beaten up by a Lutheran, tell me about it. This poor man, and as we go to where we can't see the internet right now, he could have been executed. His only crime is he became a Christian. But this is far from uncommon in the region.
Well, in order for most ordinary people in Canada, Michael, to understand this from somebody whose family has lived in parts of the Islamic world, is that for a country like Iran, which since 1979 has been under this Shiite, well, it's a council of mullahs really that runs the country, the Ayatollah there, which means sign of God, and it's the largest Shia country in the world. And you have a vision of the Ummah or the Caliphate, which is global Islam, political Islam, which sees itself as having a universal jurisdiction. So it doesn't think that it doesn't need international approval or doesn't need to keep itself in line with what would be perceived to be human rights today. It sees itself as having a universal jurisdiction, and this particular offence of turning from Islam is perceived as apostasy, which is treason against the Islamic State. Now, in the Western legal tradition, for us as Canadians, we think of treason as an action that takes place against the security of your state. In Islam, under the Sharia, in this case the Hudud aspect, which involves capital punishment for turning from Islam, you are turning away from, you're treasonable against the Ummah, against the world of Islam, and beliefs, not just actions, beliefs are here treasonable. So you don't have this concept of freedom of conscience or freedom of belief or freedom of assembly and religion there, as we understand it here, does not exist in the same way. He won't be sat with a jury of his peers being tried in terms of freedom of expression, freedom of religion. And guilt is assumed until you are proven innocent. And if he is found guilty, which he has been, that means a loss of actual legal status. Your family, your children, your property are all seizable by the state. So you have essentially a kind of statist religion where treason here is actually against the Ummah, the state of Islam.
Now, Iran is an extreme example, but what about other countries in the Islamic world? We'll talk in a few moments about the way Christians are treated on an individual basis, communally as well, but does the state treat Christians, or converts, I should say? Because if you're born a Christian, you may not be well treated in Iran, but you're allowed to be. It's when someone converts. So if someone converts in Egypt or in parts of Nigeria or in Malaysia, what would happen to them?
Yeah, well, of course, it depends on the community. The response is mixed. My family lived in the Islamic world largely untroubled. And they were there teaching and actually sharing about Christ. So we can't make a blanket uniform statement about how a given Muslim family or community will respond. Yes. Different Islamic countries are at different levels of extremes in the way they react. But Sharia, which is essential and core to Islam, regards turning to another faith as apostasy, and you then become the dimitude. So you may be let be in terms of, for example, Pakistan has freedom of religion per se, but look at what's going on right now in Pakistan, and look what's happening to Christians. Look what happened to the Lahore minister there, who was assassinated. Now, the killer there is being actually put on trial, and I think has been sentenced to death for it. Yeah,
let's hold on one moment. The killer was cheered by hundreds, if not thousands, of Pakistani lawyers.
Yeah.
His warders in the prison would kneel at his feet to praise him. Throughout Pakistan, if there's a change of weather, Christians are killed, churches are burnt down, Christians are denied any sort of meaningful work. That's why there are so many Christian janitors, even though they're maybe highly educated.
That's right.
Christians in Egypt, maybe 10, 11%, as high as that. terribly treated.
Yeah.
You see what's happening to Christians in Iraq now who weren't persecuted under Saddam Hussein directly, but now are fleeing the country.
Baghdad, yeah.
As fundamentalism increases its power in Palestine, the same is happening. I mean, there are exceptions, but they are exceptions. The rule tends to be persecution, intimidation, or state murder.
Yeah, and this is true. And for most Western people, the issue is the failure to understand the nature and character of political Islam. Most of their exposure to Islam is through Muslims living in Canada or in the United Kingdom.
And
Little
Mosque on the Prairie, which is a very, very accurate depiction of Islamic life.
So you have that perception of Islam in the West because they're living essentially under Western law, although with their Sharia tribunals and so on and so forth in the UK right now. Of course, there is a big expose recently on what's happening there with the abuse of English civil law there. So no, there is no question that the churches look. But this has gone on. I think we should add this has gone on for centuries. In the 4th century in Persia, there was 16,000 Christians were killed. But by the 5th century,
pre-Islam.
Yes, pre-Islam. And you had, by the 5th century, you had the center of Christian life in that part of the Persian Gulf was in the heart of the Persian Empire. The Chinese have tried to stamp out Christianity by persecution. There are more people in churches worshipping Christ now in China than in all of Europe put together.
I will be persecuting you after the show. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
My privilege. Thank you, Michael.